Everyone, welcome. So, have you ever walked into a bookstore, looked at the shelf with all the Bibles and just felt completely overwhelmed? Yeah, you are so not alone. Well, today, we're going to make sense of all of that. We're going to dive into the really fascinating world of Bible translations.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? You see all these letters everywhere, NASB, ESV, NIV, and you hear people get really passionate arguing about which one is the best or the most accurate. It can be a lot. It's confusing. But here's a thought. What if the answer isn't about finding one single best version? What if it's really about understanding what makes them different to begin with?
Exactly. It really can feel like a giant puzzle with way too many pieces. But the good news, there's actually a pretty simple framework that makes it all just click. So let's start putting those pieces together, shall we?
Okay, so the very first step is we need to shift our thinking. We've got to stop thinking in terms of good versus bad translations. The real difference here isn't about quality. It's about philosophy. See, each translation team had a totally different goal in mind for how to take those original texts, the Hebrew, the Aramaic, the Greek, and bring them into English that we can understand today.
So the first big approach is what we can call word for word. Now, the fancy term for this is formal equivalence, but word for word is all you really need to remember. The goal here is all about precision, like ultimate precision. The translators are trying to stick as close as they possibly can to the original sentence structure, the grammar, the exact vocabulary. It's all about preserving the form of the original language.
Now, on the total other side of the coin, you've got the thought-for-thought approach. The technical name for this one is dynamic equivalence. And for these translators, the number one goal is clarity and readability. They're focused on capturing the original meaning of a phrase and then figuring out, okay, how would we say this in natural, everyday English today?
And this really highlights the fundamental trade-off, doesn't it? The word-for-word translations, they're all about precision. And that's fantastic if you're doing a deep study. But let's be honest, sometimes they can feel a little wooden or kind of clunky to read. On the other hand, the thought-for-thought versions prioritize clarity. They're super easy to read, but you're naturally moving a bit further away from the literal structure of the original text.
So, once you get those two big ideas in your head, it becomes pretty clear that this isn't a simple either-or thing. Almost all modern translations actually live somewhere on a spectrum between these two extremes, somewhere between the most literal word and the core idea.
And here's a great way to visualize it. Just think of a line. On one end, you've got formal equivalence. That's our word-for-word camp. Way over on the other end, you've got dynamic equivalence, the thought-for-thought folks. And then smack dab in the middle, you have what a lot of people call optimal or mediating translations. And you guessed it, they're trying to strike a perfect balance between the two.
Okay, let's start over on that word-for-word end of the spectrum. This is the side you're going to lean on when you want the absolute highest degree of technical accuracy. So, our first big example here is the New American Standard Bible, or the NASB. And this one is widely considered the most literal English translation you can get. Its biggest strength? Just unparalleled precision. It is an incredible tool for really deep technical study of the original grammar and word choices. Now, what's the drawback? Well, that super strict faithfulness to the original can make it feel a bit clunky to read.
Now, right next door to the NASB on the spectrum, you'll find the English Standard Version, the ESV. Its philosophy is described as essentially literal. So it keeps a really high degree of word-for-word accuracy, but it gives the translators just a little more freedom to improve the literary quality and make it a bit more readable. And honestly, that balance is why it has become a massively popular choice for serious study.
All right, let's slide over to the center of our spectrum now. This is where we find those optimal or mediating translations. And just like the name says, their goal is to hit that perfect sweet spot, to try and get the best of both worlds by combining the precision from the word-for-word side with the clarity from the thought-for-thought side.
And two huge examples you'll see here are the Christian Standard Bible, the CSB, and of course, the incredibly famous New International Version, the NIV. Both of these are intentionally trying to balance literal accuracy with natural readability. And that's why you'll often hear them called great all-around translations, perfect for just about anything, from your own quiet time to a group study.
Okay, and now we're going to jump all the way to the other end of our spectrum. For this group of translations, the number one priority, the main goal, is making sure the original ideas come across powerfully and clearly in natural, contemporary English.
This is where you'll find really popular versions like the New Living Translation, the NLT. And these translations read so smoothly, almost like a modern book. That's because the translators focused on getting the meaning of the entire thought across. So an ancient idiom that might be literally translated as, gird up the loins of your mind, becomes something direct like, prepare your minds for action. See? It's the exact same meaning, just put into words we'd actually use today.
Okay, so now that we've laid out the entire map and we understand the different philosophies, we finally get to the most practical question of all. How does any of this help you choose? Well, the answer is actually really simple. You just match the translation to your goal. I want you to think of it like a toolbox. What's the job you're trying to do right now? If your goal is to do a really deep technical study where you're digging into the original grammar, well, you're going to want a precision tool, right? So you'd grab something like the NASB or the ESV. But if you're just settling in for some personal reading and you really want to connect with the overall story, a more balanced version like the ESV or the CSV is probably a perfect fit. It's really that simple. Your purpose tells you which tool to grab.
And that brings us right to our final big takeaway. The most helpful question you can ask isn't which Bible is the best or which one is the most accurate. The much better question, the one that really unlocks everything, is this: which translation is the best tool for my purpose right now? Just making that simple little shift in how you think about it, that is the key. That's what's going to let you navigate the whole world of Bible translations with total confidence.
Thanks for watching. Visit our website www.christthelivingtruth.com to learn more.